When I go into an organisation and organisations say to me, we want to produce a high-performing team, we think that we can get greater productivity and performance out of this collection of individuals, I find the whole challenge really fascinating. And the first question which I have to ask is, what's your definition of a high-performing team? What does it actually mean? Because I guarantee that what most people understand by a high-performing team and what you think is a high-performing team and what I think is a high-performing team will be at variance. So we have to understand, what do we actually mean by a high-performing team? So I want to turn first and foremost to a high-performing team to use as an example. Take it away from business and let's look at Pep Guardiola. Now, Pep Guardiola had a high-performing team when he was manager of the football club Barcelona. He's since been able to replicate it in other clubs, in other countries, and therefore I think that what he's found is some winning formula that works for him in his industry. So let's analyse that and see if we can use it within our industry. And I've got this quote which I've put salient points up on the screen, but let me read you the whole quote. So the whole quote is, everyone played their part and everyone knew their role. This is at Barcelona. It all unfolded naturally, he says, without having to tell the player that they have what they have to do this and they have to do that. The roles within the group were shared out, and if anyone didn't like it, they left. That was how we built something special at Barcelona and kept it going for so long. He then adds a second element, a real key point. He says, we provoked an emotional reaction. When you look at titles, they're just numbers and nothing more. But there are a lot of people that really loved watching us play. If they are still talking about us in 25 years' time, they won't be talking about the titles we won. They'll be talking about the way we played. And then finally, he talks about himself in this process by saying, people become managers for all kinds of reasons. My motivation is tactics. That's why I became a coach, to dissect the game and find solutions. The basic concept was to do the simple things well. That gave you a 75% chance of winning. Everyone participates in the overall game plan. So what we have here with Pep Guardiola is we have an individual who concentrated on doing the fundamental operational stuff within his group of people. But then what he also looked at was how to make that emotional connection with what the team was performing, what the team was actually doing. And that emotional connection is going to be so imperative. And the third element that we looked at was that of the individual. So the individual knew their place in the team. They knew what they were supposed to be doing to perform. So I want to look at these three elements here on this second slide. The element of you as a leader, the element of the individual within the team, and the element of the team itself. So we have to look at each of those three responsibilities, should we call them, and ask ourselves these questions. As a leader, what's my motivation? What am I trying to achieve? What do I enjoy doing that makes me the leader of this group of people? So as a leader, have I been promoted into this position because of my past operational performance? Have I been promoted into this position because of my potential? Am I realizing my potential? These questions we need to ask ourselves. What is it I enjoy doing? For Pep, it was the tactics. For other people, it would be the interaction with individuals, etc. Second question we need to ask is that of the individual. And the individual needs to know what's their role in this team. As a sportsman myself, I played cricket last season, and it wasn't until that point when somebody came to me and said, we knew that you were going to perform at that level because that's what you do. That's your role in the team. You are there to do this particular job, and we all knew that you would do it. So that enabled us to play our own game around you. And knowing that I had a place in the team gave me such confidence and motivation and a will for the team to do well as for me to do my own performance. So the third question is, as a member of a collective group, what's my role then? How do I interact with other people? What do I do? So in order to answer this, let's move on to something that Patrick Lencioni looks at in his book, The Advantage, where he looks at 5 different statuses, shall we say, of a team. So we look at them over their productivity against their team effectiveness. So here on the graph, the first position that we have is just a collection of individuals, which I've called a working group. A collection of individuals, they don't necessarily interact with each other, they don't collaborate with each other, they just go off and do their own thing. They work as an individual. Very much like the accusation that's made against Tiger Woods when he plays in the Ryder Cup team. He's never very good as a team player because he just does his individual thing. So here we have a group of individuals. They're all quite decent performers, but working as a team, nah, they don't do that. The next phase that we look at is those who make up a team and they pretend to be a team. I've called them a pseudo team, a false team. So their pretense is, of course, we operate as a team. Of course we do. You know, we have team meetings. We meet together. We trust each other. We do this, that, and the other. We go out and have drinks, etc. But what's lacking within that team dynamic is the ability to operate cohesively. In other words, they're still operating on an individual silo basis. They're not operating as a cohesive unit. So as far as they're concerned, they're operating as a team because they have team meetings. That's kind of where it starts and finishes. There's no collaboration, there's no cohesion, and therefore there is no greater productivity as a result of that. Third status is that of a potential team. So with the potential team, what we're looking at here are those who have started along that path of cohesion. They've started to do the things that are right, the right things. Yet they haven't achieved it yet. And there's probably because there's a breakdown of interpersonal trust, or commitment, or accountability, or, you know, one of those things that the 5 dysfunctions are all about. And so subsequently, they're not performing at their peak, but they are moving generally in the right direction. So the next level that I want to look at is where they start to perform as a unit, a cohesive unit. So everybody is working towards the same goal. Everyone is doing something which, as a unit, is contributing towards the achievement of the end result. Now, some may be doing greater, some may be doing lesser component parts. That doesn't matter because the team's ethos and thought process is we as a group are working towards this. Now, there is still areas in a real team where it can be improved. Still elements of performance that can get better. Hence the reason why we say that a high-performing team has even greater ability than the sum of its individuals. The output is even better than the sum of the component parts. So taking all of that into consideration, there's a journey where the team can go through and go through each of those individual elements one by one. Maybe, maybe not. There are things that can get wrong in your organisation, though. And I've kind of concentrated these into 3 things, 3 elements. And this is covered in Lencioni's different book, The Advantage, where he looks at sophistication bias. So this is where an organisation says, well, unless it's really complex, it's no good. Unless I don't understand it and I need to get KPMG in or PricewaterhouseCoopers or someone like that, unless I get them in to explain what it is I do, then it's really of little value whatsoever. Being simple, having a simple plan, well, that has no relevance in this organisation at all, because it's not something which we want to be associated with. It's got to be complicated. That is sophistication bias. The second one is on quantification bias. So in other words, it's got to be quantified. Any output has got to be measured. There's got to be some form of measure that comes as a result of this. So whether it be some form of financial result, whether it be a market share result, or a share price result, or a growth result, or an NPS, or whatever it is, all of these things are to do with having a quantifiable bias. And if it's not quantifiable, then we're not interested. And the third element is that of the adrenaline rush that you get when you are completely reactive. When you have the adrenaline bias, you are firefighting all the time. And you don't believe that you're working unless you are running around like a headless chicken trying to stamp out the fires. As such, you have no time. The organisation has no time for creativity, no time for planning, and certainly no time for looking at where we're all headed as a group of people. Now, Lencioni goes a step further and he says, look, there's a balance that needs to be achieved here. There's a balance between two elements, and one very much well is all of these things that I've called a wise approach, or he calls them a smart approach. And I've decided not to use the term smart today, only because we use that in terms of smart goals and smart setting things. So it's nothing to do with that at all. So the wise approach is all of those logical, intellectual, output-related elements, probably measurable, probably things that we can look at and say, well, I've hit that target, let's cross that off the list. The balance that needs to be performed in a high-performing group of people is that attention to the healthy elements. The healthy elements are those things which are people-related. So the safeguarding of individuals, or the looking after individuals. Alina talked about the well-being and the caring of individuals last week. Nathan talked about the motivation of individuals on week 2. These are all these things which go into this part of the equation. So that enables there to be no politics. There is clear focus and clear direction on where we're heading. There is a real togetherness in the group, etc. And very often what organisations do is that they play the one off against the other. They say you can't have both, you can have either or. And very often, of course, they go down the wise results-based track, as it were. Which is great, because short term, it's a winner. You know, you can motivate people to have short-term performance at very high levels. Where you have the problem is over a longer period of time. If you're looking for longer-term performance, these things are just not motivational at all. These things are not aspirational either. So when I was in sales, what happened was that if you hit your sales target one year, well, they rewarded you by putting your target up next year. Where's the reward in that? Why should I be motivated to do more? When I broke my back last year to achieve the target, what makes you think I'm going to break it a second time, a third time, in order to achieve next year's target? That's just crazy thought. Very short-term approach, very results-orientated, and certainly does not motivate me to get up in the morning. So the longer-term vision is where there is needs to be some form of what's in it for me, some form of how am I going to benefit from this, and that is what motivates us as individuals in order to perform at a higher level. But we need to get that bit right. We need to get this vision right. What is it that this group of people are going to be able to achieve over a long-term period which is going to be motivational for this group of individuals. And I'll tell you what organisations do. What they do is this, as you can see on this slide here. They get together all of these different component bits, like targets and market share and profits and KPIs, share price and whatnot. And they say, this is how we know that you're doing a great job. If you hit all of these, you're doing a great job. But that's good for them. It's not necessarily motivational for you. It doesn't get you up in the morning just to know that you've hit their target. In order for you to get up in the morning, you need to be motivated to do something which emotionally you're attached to. Emotionally, you feel as if you are doing some good or you're achieving something which personally you get satisfaction from. So here on this slide, we have all of those wise things. Very much intellectual, very logical, very much cold, and orientated towards the organisation. What we need for those to be ordered into something which is aspirational for us as individuals. And that is where your personal team vision comes into play. We need to know that we are running to a great purpose, that we are doing something really special, really important, and really aspirational. It's on week 4, I think it was, we talked about having those list of 6 questions for your team. Question number 1 was, why do we exist as a group? This is where this comes in. Why do we exist as a group is what gets us up in the morning. And it's something which is very future orientated, very aspirational, and maybe in our lifetime will never be achieved. But the fact that we are progressing towards it is enough to make us feel good about ourselves and to motivate us to do more. So if we can then align all of those wise elements, the results and the targets and the goals and stuff like that, if we can align all of that to that aspirational target or vision, then we are onto a winner. We know why we're doing things. We know how we're going to measure those things. But take care. Organisations think, oh, I tell you what, we'll put out a really beautiful aspirational vision, something like we want to make an impact. We want to make the world a better place. We want to change the way in which we operate. Well, great. Those are so vague, we have no idea if we are actually progressing towards them. In other words, we need to know a little bit more about the vision. We need to know what it looks like, what it feels like, what it's going to taste like, how it's going to benefit people, etc., etc. We need to have a clarity of that vision. When Martin Luther King gave his "I Had a Dream" speech, he did not leave it at "I had a dream." He then went on to talk about what that dream looked like, how it was going to benefit people, what it was going to feel like, etc., etc. Now, had he stopped at "I had a dream," we'd have all walked away and gone, so? And I've had dreams too. And then we become very operational in the way in which we approach things, not motivational and realising our high potential. So here's the practical. What I would like you to do is I'd like you to think about this 4-stage approach. Stage 1 is get your team together, because this is not something you need to do solo. Get the team together to build the vision for the team. Get the team involved in this, because if they're involved, they buy into it. If it's just you, well, I can take it or leave it. So in this team huddle, where we're going to focus on this, it may be better if you have a skilled facilitator, someone like myself or Nathan or Elena. We all work in this kind of corporate environment where we can facilitate these conversations in order to identify what makes this team tick. What is it about your group of people, your team, which you can use as a reason for us all coming together to exist as a cohesive unit? A couple of rules with regards to this. Your vision needs to be future orientated and it needs to be aspirational. It can't be something which you can attain within a year. That's a target. The vision needs to be something which is running to a great purpose. Why is it that you do the job you do? A lot of people, it's to help people. For some people, it might be to make the world a better place in this specific area. Be specific like that. So step number 2 then is to identify how the team targets fit in with that vision. Okay, so you have the vision. Now this is how your KPIs, this is how your goals, this is how your targets, this is how the share price kind of fits into all of this. And once you have that, you have a clear direction as to where the team's heading, and also how we're going to measure whether we are making progress towards that. And then step 3 is, as a leader, we, as your team members, need to know the tactics to get us there. How are you going to get us there? What do we have to do in order to make a difference and in order to achieve these results so that we can achieve the vision? So help us with those tactics. Give us some pointers. And then finally, when you have your collective group meetings or your collective group video conferences, you'll need to communicate again this vision. Keep everybody on track. Keep the mind clear on exactly where this group is heading. We need to have that reinforcement of the clarity of the vision, and that's down to you. So finally, what I want to talk through is, what do I do if a member of my team doesn't buy into it? What do I do if a member of my team says, well, you lot can do that, I'm not interested, I'm going to do my own thing? There's 2 options here, folks. Option number 1 is that the individual can, as we call it, disagree and commit. In other words, they can say, look, here's my point of view. If you're not going to go that route, I will disagree with you as a group of people that I think you're going down the wrong route, but I'm still going to commit to the group decision. I will commit to the vision. The second option is they leave. As a leader, you don't want a third option of where they stay and they try to disrupt the whole group, the vision, the way you're doing things, just to prove that they were right in the first place. That's where ego comes into it. That's where you have obstacles of things which cause distrust within the group and are not going to create a cohesive unit. So 2 options: disagree and commit, or leave. No others. It's tough, but that's how you get a high-performing team. You will never achieve a high-performing team unless you weed out those people who are not committed to the vision. There is this lovely quote that I'm going to leave you with, which I found on the website for Legal & General. The CEO here basically saying, look, we are in a tremendous opportunity now. You have a tremendous opportunity to do all of the things that we're talking about quite legitimately, won't seem weird, because the whole world has changed. The whole world has changed to something completely different, so therefore we need to reinvent ourselves and make ourselves something different. So whereas we've been looking up until this point perhaps on the way in which we're working, reinventing the way in which we are as individuals, the way in which as a leader I perform, this is now collective. Let's collectively reinvent our team to make it perform in a different way, perform in a different sphere, and let's perform differently together as more of a cohesive unit. So my final slide is this. Simply reinvent yourselves. Take this opportunity right now, today, to reinvent yourselves. Thank you very much.